Africa tends to be the center of attention of both the US and the USSR in Twilight Struggle. You neglect Africa at your own peril, as games have been won or lost in this underappreciated region of the board. Let's take a look at it today on Legendary Tactics. Africa is a very interesting region, and not only because there are so many one-stability battleground countries to fight over. In many cases, Africa is an extension of your gameplay in the Middle East and Europe, and so both players will need to understand it well. Let's take a look. First of all, let's look at Africa as a region. It is composed of 18 countries, of which 5 are battlegrounds. Presence in Africa is worth 1 victory point, domination is worth 4, and control is worth 6. Of course, each controlled battleground is worth 1 extra victory point to whomever controls it. Africa as a region is a bit deceptive. Because it appears to be lower scoring than the other quote-unquote major regions like Asia or Europe, it's easy to write it off and look at it as a much lower priority, perhaps in a similar way that one might view Central America. But you ignore Africa at your peril, as there are many early and mid-war events that can lead to one side or the other scoring big when this scoring card turns up. In most cases, Europe and Asia become quite balanced and then deadlocked, and the victory point differential when the scoring card turns up is likely not more than 5 victory points. But the situation in Africa is more fluid, mainly because the stability of the countries there are mostly one, and so it's not unusual for one power or the other to quietly and almost covertly work their way towards domination or even control of the region, which can be worth a bunch of VPs. For this reason, either player is going to want to be the first to move to dominate the region and to establish themselves. Turn 2 is not too early to begin to place influence there if you can. Don't wait until turn 4 and the beginning of the mid-war period. Get a good head start if possible. Africa can be divided into subregions based on the way the battleground countries are laid out. Algeria is one of them. Nigeria is another. And then you have the battleground countries in the south, namely Zaire, Angola, and South Africa. Each of these subregions are connected by one stability non-battlegrounds, namely Saharan states and Cameroon. Because of this, it can be tricky to get to an adjacent subregion by direct influence placement, in the same way that Colombia makes for a rickety bridge to Venezuela and beyond. If you find yourself in Nigeria, and if you find yourself to be a gambler, you could play into Saharan states and Cameroon in the same action round, with the view that you will get access to either Algeria or Zaire, as your opponent will not be able to respond to the threats in both directions with a single coup. When it comes to the southmost subregion, the country of Botswana is far more important than it first appears, mainly because it will be useful in realigning both South Africa and Angola. As we look across the rest of the region, interestingly, there are a lot of countries that really will not get much play. For example, Morocco is generally way too expensive to control, although it does offer a stable option that will be difficult to contest if you need a non-battleground for domination. West African states and Ivory Coast, Kenya and Somalia are also expensive, low-return investments. There just isn't enough ops in the game to fight over these. Although Ivory Coast could potentially be useful in helping you maintain access to Nigeria in case you get realigned out, or if you get hit with Voice of America as the USSR, or if your opponent gets a weak roll for their coup. If you somehow can afford to control Ivory Coast, it could also contribute nicely to a realignment role of your own in Nigeria. Occasionally, I have seen play into Tunisia, Sudan, and Zimbabwe, and very rarely into Ethiopia, but this is only because they are low cost to control, not attractive for coups, and help contribute to either domination or control. Now that we've looked at the region in general, let's look at the major themes. One of the principal considerations when DEF CON has dropped to 2 are realignments. The region offers many permutations and combinations when it comes to realigning your opponent, and control of neighboring countries can usually be achieved inexpensively. Always keep an eye out for opportunities to realign when you place influence anywhere in Africa. If you get lucky, you might be able to realign your opponent completely out of the region, which could make it tricky to get back in. If this leads to your control of Africa, and if your opponent no longer has presence, that means 11 victory points for your side, which is, needless to say, substantial. Truth be told, the three key battlegrounds that you will mostly be fighting over are Nigeria, Zaire, and Angola. These are all 1 stability and are easy targets for coups or even direct influence placement. It only takes 3 operations points to flip control, so you will want to over-control these countries where you can, but even then they will be vulnerable. Move into them, obviously, when DEFCON is at 2. For the USSR, decolonization and, to a lesser extent, destalinization will be your likely method of entering Africa. Also, France is a gateway to Algeria, which is usually a desirable but unattainable goal for the United States, as the USSR can afford to grab it earlier than the US. When the mid-war arrives, so do a bunch of great Soviet events that affect Africa. South African unrest is the one that I like best, especially because it is recurring. It is also an opportunity to get control of Botswana. Or perhaps to flip Angola if there is the opportunity. Not to mention the pressure that it puts on the US maintaining control of South Africa, their all-important base down there. Portuguese Empire crumbles is also useful, mainly as a way to possibly gain control of Angola. A savvy US player will over-control Angola in anticipation of this event, in addition to South African unrest. Che is also great in Africa, as it can flip a couple of non-battlegrounds to help you gain domination, or to stave off US domination, or to give you simultaneous access to different parts of the continent, so you can stir up trouble. Even though it is an early war event, decolonization remains powerful and useful here, especially as it may be only of limited use in Southeast Asia by the mid-war. You can use it to destabilize battlegrounds controlled by your opponent, or grab a bunch of non-battlegrounds at once to help with your domination or control of the region. For the US player, the starting point in Africa tends to be South Africa. Using South Africa as a base, it's a good idea to expand into Angola and Zaire as soon as you can, preferably in the early war. And grabbing control of Botswana is also smart. You don't want to get trapped in South Africa, as it can be very vulnerable to realignments. As soon as you can spare the operations points, make sure to play into South Africa to control it, as it will be an anchor for your position in the region. Do this in turn 3 if you can, before the Africa-focused Soviet event cards arrive. Alternatively, you can spend ops to control the always useful country of Botswana, which should give your position in South Africa some measure of protection and buy you some time. Although it may not be possible to realistically afford, if the USSR gets any influence in France, you'll want to snag Algeria at the first opportunity, as it will certainly be on the Soviet radar. In the mid-war, you will get some events to help you in Africa. Colonial rearguards, the US decolonization is, of course, perfect here in the same way that it benefits the USSR, to destabilize enemy-controlled battleground countries. Or to get control of a bunch of non-battleground countries to either gain domination or control, or to deny it to your opponent. Puppet governments can help out as well, as long as it's played early enough that there are some choices available to you, and especially since it can give you control of a country like Nigeria without having to cross the one stability non-battleground states to get there. And nuclear subs will likely find its best use in helping you to repeatedly coup the low stability battlegrounds in Africa, as long as you have the ops and the opportunity. Voice of America is an event that is useful most anywhere on the map, but if you refer back to when I mentioned the different subregions of the continent, you can use this event to eliminate Soviet access to one or more of them. So, for either power, Africa will be contentious for the entire game, especially as the mid-war begins. Do not underestimate how much this region can play into your victory or loss at Twilight Struggle. Its volatility is matched only by its high scoring potential. This has been our analysis of the Africa scoring card in the game Twilight Struggle. We hope you found this useful and interesting, and if you did, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you here next time on Legendary Tactics.